I know it's crazy, but I truly believe some of the superstitions I have as a fan, and I have to do them. The Penguins won back-to-back Stanley Cups because of me.
If you're talking about the salt lamp, I don't think you're right about that. It's probably more of a Crosby Malkin thing. But we'll definitely talk
Eh,
about our favorite superstitions going forward.
Agree to disagree.
Welcome back to episode 2 of Out of Town Yinzers. I'm Joe alongside Justin. We are talking Steelers, Pirates, Pens, and even Pitt. We'll be here every week, every Wednesday, we decided. So crack a beer, sip a latte. We're going to jump right into it. But first off, we just want to thank everyone who listened on episode 1. Really appreciate the response, I would say. And Justin, I know you've probably gotten more text messages than I have. I think my wife watched about 5 minutes and was out. So a little bit less on my side.
Yeah, so just wanted to, I think it's good for us just to go over some of the feedback in general. We won't get into the boring behind the scenes stuff. That's it is super helpful. So if anyone does have anything, certainly reach out to us. But I was blown away. It was overwhelmingly positive. It makes you wonder, like, what was the level of expectation? What did they expect from us if they were this blown away? Sort of feedback, and which makes sense. So that is what it is. But yeah, some of the conversations I had kind of led. People were asking me a little bit about your background, and they thought you did a really good job of hosting. And I don't think some people didn't know you were in the news and stuff like that prior. So I think that was
I
interesting
hid
having some of
behind the
those
camera.
conversations. That was my
So in the
question.
news is not a thing. Yeah.
Right. Well, I know you weren't in front of the camera. Did you ever do in front of the camera stuff like while in school and in classes or anything like
Oh
that?
yeah, I
Or
had to. I was even the
yeah.
weather guy. When you're a weather guy though, you just got to worry about not doing what they call a 360. So you never want to show your butt on TV when you're a weather guy. But otherwise, I did all the roles. But I like being
Yeah.
behind the scenes. But here I am now, back out in front.
So that's where the snow squalls story originated. It makes more sense knowing that. So I just wanted to run through some of the things. I got a bunch of people saying we need to do Does Catherine Know Sports at some point. We'll have to find a way down the road to work that in. It's basically a drinking game we play with my wife who does not know sports, so that's always fun. Um, my daughters were tough critics, I gotta say. So I told them I was going to be on TV, and in fairness, YouTube to them that is TV. That's what they watch. So they were excited but very confused. So Maddie, my 5-year-old, her feedback was, "Does Joe live in our basement now?" She thought that you were in the basement. They don't understand, obviously, what we're doing, but they thought you were in the basement. Um, and her feedback, very humbling, was she didn't like it because there's no girls, there's only boys, and she wants more unicorn, princess, and fairy content. So we'll have to work on that a bit. Some of the other feedback I got roasted pretty good for the logo. And this was even before the podcast started, but I did get roasted for the logo. I got called Jimmy Neutron, and the follow up to that was, I think your hair is a little bit more Corey Matthews than Jimmy Neutron. Faux Hawk Boy, which was pretty good. Child Sean McVay. And then I did get it. So this headset is going to be gone. I'm getting a
You're
mic
almost
here.
older than Sean McVay though, so like
I
child
know
Sean
it's
McVay is kind
close.
of
It's
tough.
close.
That's
Yeah.
tough look.
Well, they were saying the logo with the faux hawk and everything. I look like in the logo. I look like a child Sean McVay. But and then the headset comment had to have won if I was taking like an unscientific poll. The comment was, I was ready for you to call me about my car's extended warranty with your headset, and I was like, that's pretty spot on. That's tough. That's a tough look. So I am getting a mic. To be fair, and this kind of works into what we were just talking about. We were thinking we were going to start this podcast in February. Tomlin sort of pushed us to get started a little sooner than we were. So good problem to have. But yeah, so that
And
was
one
some of the fun feedback we received. So
Well, one thing you did nail first episode to kind of kick us off was Mike McCarthy sighting. He's coming to Pittsburgh for an in-person interview at 62. So we'll jump right into the Steelers, and we're talking coaching until they have a coach. So kind of that's
right.
where we're starting overall. But
Yeah, what a time
McCarthy,
to be alive. I couldn't. I wake up that next morning, I got the text, and I was like, "There's no way!" Like the next morning, they're interviewing him after this had just we had talked about it Friday, and then what was it Sunday that news broke that they were bringing him. I was like, "There's no way they're actually bringing him in." But that was great. That was so funny seeing that. I will say to kind of a lot of the coaches they're bringing in for second interviews. Keep in mind, like Weaver, I think is one. McCarthy, I can't remember the third one. These are guys that aren't they've already interviewed and they're not in the playoffs. So that I think that has a lot to do with why they're being brought in for a second interview already. So don't panic. I don't think any of these guys are realistic. I hope for the most part that these guys aren't realistic, but yeah, I wouldn't look too much into that. So
oh, I would. I mean, come on. You're talking Brian
yeah,
Flores, Weaver with his Ravens background. Both of those guys are legit
yeah,
guys. I think
yeah.
the Rams, if the Rams would have actually just lost to the Bears, as they should. I actually watched the game with my neighbor, who's a huge Bears fan, Kyle, and seeing Caleb Williams throw that touchdown where he backpedaled to the 45-yard line and just threw a Hail Mary up, essentially, on a 4th and 4, and to have it come down into the Cole Kmet's arms was as graceful as Kyle jumping off the couch and coming down into my arms on the other side of it as well. So unfortunate
51 air
overtime.
yards on a 14-yard touchdown pass is a wild stat. So
Yeah, absolutely.
can't imagine being a Bears fan during that.
For sure. So tough for the Bears overall. I will say, I know we'll talk about kind of Steelers players later, but out on DJ Moore, if he was ever a Steeler, the way he ran that last route in overtime was
It's not the first
atrocious.
time. Yeah,
And
he
that's
does
kind of
that.
his thing.
Yep, he faded. That was the reason for that interception. That's not he ad libs a lot too. We'll get into players later, but yeah,
But yeah, no, kind of going back to the Steelers though, I think while there's a lot of kind of interviews to be had, so to speak. The second interviews are coming. There is a list, so where you think of, they could go off script, but there's a list that's out there of who the Steelers are talking to. So between the two of us, kind of top three of that list that you would want to have, and then if there's any on that list, it's like a, stay the hell away type guy.
yeah. You want to you start? I'll kind of jump in after the fact and kind of give my take on that. If you want to, you kind of run through your top three.
Yeah, I would say for my top three, I kind of mentioned on the last pod, but really, I just want to stay with the young, up and coming coach. So I'm out on McCarthy. We talked about that before. A 62 retread. I'm kind of out on that aspect. Anybody else in that mold, I'm out on as well. Weaver didn't even get consideration for the Dolphins job. He was on the Dolphins staff and wasn't even interested. So like that's more
Hmm.
telling to me than anything.
Right.
But give me kind of some of those young up and coming guys. So I'm a big Shieldhouse guy. He hasn't been an offensive coordinator, but to be 35, being thrown in where he's at, Kubiak with the 49ers. Also, I think either of those two would be great. And then really, I think the defensive guys are kind of all in the hodgepodge, and it's harder to really make a full call on scheme and things of that nature when it comes to the defensive guys. But I guess Chris Shula, if you had to put a gun to my head, of kind of the third to round it out when it comes down to it. So really, the Rams, like I mentioned before, a key part for the Steelers' future. Hopefully, they get taken down by the Seahawks, so we can figure stuff out on our end.
Gotcha. So you would say Shieldhouse, Kubiak, 1, 2, in that order, and then
I would
Shula.
say in that order. Yep.
Okay.
And then Shula would be three.
Yeah, I think our overall we're pretty similar on that. Shieldhouse would be 4 for me, but like again, he's kind of in his own tier, like his next tier, but he's definitely above all the other names that would are being mentioned. Shula and Minter. I'll talk about the defensive coaches first, real quick. I saw this is a random tweet that I saw about he gave a speech on he dissected every single fumble or every single turnover that was forced. So every single fumble that was forced, and on this he gave a speech on it, and he diagrammed them. And now a couple years later, the Rams are leading the league in turnovers. I don't think that's by mistake. Just having a process and having thinking about turnovers that way, that just shows process to me. He might be my number one, especially after seeing what he's done. They were a bottom, so they were 19th in the league in defense in 23 when he stepped into the role in 24, and you lose Aaron Donald off of the 19th best ranked defense. That's a pretty big. stepped down, looked terrible to start. Marvin Harrison Jr. had his career game week 2 against him in his second game coaching. They just looked like a defense that had no clue, and he turned them around quick. And they were young, and he developed Verse and Fisk and some of the other guys on the D line. So I'm all in on Shula. Minter, again, similar. The numbers are even similar. I think they're 9 and 10 this year in
Wait,
defense.
hold on 1 second on Shula. If he has a different last name, does it change anything for you?
It doesn't,
Is it part of the
and
last
there's a.
name?
I don't care at all about the last name. Couldn't care less about that. I think
I
McVay's
kind
even
of like
talked a
it.
little bit.
I'm
So
kind of
it's.
I'm in on the last name. So I feel like that's if he had a different last name, he is not in the top 3 for me
I'll say
when
this:
it comes to it.
if it wasn't for his grandfather, I don't think Chuck Noll would have been a Steelers coach. So there's definitely a tie there, which is kind of interesting.
I think the last name would
So
help him fill a staff. So I think
yeah,
that's one of the things
maybe.
I think would help in terms of connections that are outside of just the people that he's coached with in the past and things of that nature. But I'll let you move on to Minter. But I'm definitely in on Shula, partially because his name is Shula, for sure.
Okay. Minter's similar. Again, even the stats where the defense came from to where it is. I think one's 9, one's 10 now. They were Minter's the Chargers were even lower. I think the scheme's great. He uses Derwin James great. So kind of similar. That you could convince me any 3 of these, he'd probably be 3. Um, and that again, the offensive guys similar to you, Kubiak would be my 2. Um, at this point, the run that they're on right now, I mean, it's like everything they do works out. Everything is right that they do on offense. The way he uses JSN out of bunch, out of motion, that's my big thing too. My big tell on you mentioned it's hard with schemes and defensive guys. I agree. With offensive guys, my 2 tells, and I tweeted this out today, are motion rates and then play action pass rates. Those are the 2 big things that, not that it's advanced analytics by any means, but those are the 2 things that I think make offensive coaches stand out. A great example, I don't think anyone could be any lower on the Eagles offense this year. 23, 24, and 25, they went from lowest in the league in motion, OC got fired, top 5 in the league in motion with the OC that's now the head coach of the Saints, and then won the Super Bowl and basically no one can stop them. And now they're back to bottom 5 in the league, and the OC got fired. So perfect example of why motion rates matter. And I think motion rates is maybe just a symptom of like knowing what you're doing, having a plan, things like that. Play action pass is the same. Kubiak wasn't as high as I thought, and also just to wrap that up. That's all McVay and Shanahan. The top 4 this year: McVay, Shanahan, and the 2 McVay and Shanahan disciples, and Zach Robinson and McDaniel, who they have their own issues. But again, it's that same tree like we went back to in the first episode. So Kubiak, I'm all in on now. I kind of always was. I was never out on him. But it's almost like he was out of the spotlight as they'd already clinched for a couple weeks. But what he's doing, what they're doing, and when you're watching the Rams and the Seahawks game, watch the motion, watch the way they use JSN, and specifically the way they use Puka. They use motion. It's almost like they get them off the line. They buy 5 yards with their motion from them. So watch that in that game if you wanted a reason to like one of these 2 guys. So.
That is true. It's definitely going to be an interesting game from that standpoint as a Steeler fan. When you think of kind of that side of the house, obviously the Kubiak we're looking at is not the Kubiak in that game, but neither here nor there. I will say though, you made an aspect. You're all in on motion offense. So there's a coach whose last name is the country that's right to the north of us, who's a big motion guy.
Perfect example.
And did not work out for the Steelers.
They brought him in because of
That's
motion.
Matt Canada.
Yes, they brought him in because of motion. His motion was great at Pitt. Didn't work out at LSU, that's for sure. But then they dropped, I think, and we'll have to check the stats, but I think they were still bottom third of the league in pre-snap motion. So yeah, it would have been, and maybe some of that was simplifying. I don't know, but didn't show up when he was the OC here. So.
Just wanted to throw that out there. The guy was
No,
was known
you're right.
for motion.
You're absolutely right. That was why I was excited about him.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever was, but kind of makes sense. The thing is though, the Steelers are not in a position that's unique to the Steelers right now in the NFL. They're one of 10 teams that are replacing their coach. We were chatting before the pod today just on kind of a stack ranking of those 10 teams. And really, I'm going to go first with my 10 because I think it's more of an expected list, and then I'll let you kind of jump in, or maybe we should go one for one as we go through. But uh, I think at the end of the day, my list is a lot shorter. There's really a 1-2. It's the Bills and the Ravens. You could probably convince me one way or the other on that. I think the Ravens have better ownership with Biscotti, but the Bills don't have bad ownership with Bagulas by any means. But having Josh Allen, who's 29, his style of play will age into his 30s. We saw that with Ben. Should be fine for at least another 6-7 years. Lamar Jackson, hard to say the same, that his play style will be able to move forward, and also just feels more like there's more turmoil of Lamar Jackson in Baltimore too, staying longer term. So while I think the quarterback plus the location makes those the clear top two, the Steelers are then number three. I think everyone talks about the coaches, 3 coaches since '69. That's a real thing. I think the Steelers, Rooney particularly, is hiring a coach right now who he knows is coming into a situation that's not a win now situation like Tomlin was the last time with the roster. So there'll be even more grace kind of at the beginning of that. Really grace to kind of find that quarterback, which kind of going back to without having an offensive coach being responsible for finding that quarterback. But that makes Steelers number 3. And then really I think the rest of the list is the rest of the list. I think any other team that's on the rest of that list, Giants, Falcons, Titans, Raiders, Browns, Cardinals, Dolphins, we'll be talking about this in 2 years with any of those teams. I don't think any of those have long-standing coaches. If they do, it means they just kind of had, quick success, but probably back to the doldrums soon thereafter. But that's my thought. You can make some arguments some other ways, but Justin, where's your list? Top to 10.
I do think to follow up on your comment, I do think it's worth I should have mentioned this, but I do think it's worth noting any of the coaches we like, there's a real good chance they're going to be in division. I think there's a real good chance. Obviously, Minter could end up falling, with the Harbaugh connection, could very easily be it with the Ravens, or any of these guys could be with the Ravens or the Browns, really. I have a little bit different. Your reasons with the Bills being over the Ravens, I will say that Bills roster, I don't know. Somehow Bean got promoted as GM with that roster. He's had 2 Pro Bowlers in the last 8 years or something like that. That's a little bit wild. You could blame him certainly over McDermott there. I do have the Bills first for the reasons you said about Josh Allen. I think he's going to age a little bit better than Lamar. There's just more question marks with a running, a truly running quarterback based on speed. I do like the roster a little bit better there, and I think ownership's close enough. I will go Bills over. It's such their own tier. It doesn't even matter to really dissect it though. I had the Giants and Falcons ahead of the Steelers. That's just a roster management type. Everyone does slam the Giants. They do have good management there. They have a lot of connections to Steelers there actually too. I do have the Giants over them. I have the Falcons over them. That might be a little biased from fantasy football and loving the Falcons. I do think there's some nice weapons there. They don't have a first round pick. And these are two roles that are already filled, obviously, but I just give them a slight edge just solely because of roster. You could convince this is all one tier: the Giants, the Falcons, the Steelers at 5, and the Titans at 6. Titans solely again. A couple of these are really. Are you a Dart guy? Are you a Penix guy? Are you a Cam Ward guy? That would drastically swing these rankings one way or another. And then similar to you, there's a gap there, and then everyone else. So the Raiders, the Browns, the Cardinals, the Dolphins, all those situations,
So Giants and Falcons, though, above the Steelers, like that is absolutely outrageous to me. Michael Penix doesn't even have knees right now. So you can't say anything about their roster when they don't have a quarterback either. Jackson Dart, gosh. Did you see the video with Jackson Dart and Gruden? Like all he does is clap for the things. And
so Michael Penix with no knees over no quarterback. Who are you taking?
That's the same thing. Michael Penix with no knees is the same thing as no quarterback. Like that is the same thing.
All right.
Jackson Dart also. The type of quarterback Jackson Dart is just doesn't work out long term. If he does,
don't disagree with
it'll
that
be more
on
of
the
a surprise.
And we can argue the quarter. That's fine. You take the quarterbacks out of the equation. I'd still argue that a little bit, but they've got that. We talked about that high end talent on the last podcast. Neighbors. We can say what we want about the running back situation in New York, but and then Bijan in London, like the Steelers could go the next 5 drafts trying to find those guys. Those are just building blocks to me. And the Falcons did hit on. I know they traded their first, but they did hit on the D end, and they've got a real edge rusher to work around there now. So I rate on my sliding scale, I'm going to rate the roster and the building blocks a little bit higher than the stability. But again, it's in the same tier. It's just I'm gonna lean with, if I'm a coach, I believe in myself. I'm not as worried about the stability and the long term tenure. I want the pieces to go out and win now. That's just me. So
Yeah, ownership matters. And
it does.
not to say that
Yeah.
the Giants and Falcons have terrible owners, but the Giants just haven't really won. Even when they had Eli Manning all those years, the times that they won was a surprise year that they kind of came out of nowhere type of year.
Well, too.
And
But
just the Falcons are, man, I cannot believe you have the Falcons over the Steelers as a job, citing a
I
running
just like
back
those
with
high end
Bijan
pieces.
Robinson and Drake London, who's about to be a free agent after next year.
Nah, they'll
Um,
lock him up. They'll keep him. They do have a good. Their line is solid too.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just not even close. I think when the Steelers is like should be one of the top jobs in all of sports, not just one of the top jobs that's available in the NFL this season. Like it's their Steelers are near the top of a list of a different type of list, not the list we're talking about of NFL coaches that are being filled this year.
Again, I don't disagree. I go with the pieces. I have the pieces more important to me personally. The Steelers do have a solid cap situation. The Giants are not. And again, these are effective cap numbers. The Giants are 11 under with their effective cap. The Steelers are 36 over, which or vice versa. 30 they have 36 to play with. So that's something to be said. There's something to be said for that. But I lean to the high end talent.
Yeah, yeah, cap's not an issue for me. I feel like with any of these teams, people can work around the cap. I mean, Russell Wilson's the highest paid player on the Broncos, and they're in the AFC Championship game, so the cap can be worked around.
I do have the
But
Raiders seven
definitely,
too. They're in the next tier, but again, we're watching Mendoza right now in the national team. That whole job base is based on what Mendoza is, and then it's just everyone else. But so,
hmm yeah, the rest of those jobs are just kind of garbage jobs. The Browns are the Browns. The Cardinals are in trouble. Um, I like McBride, but that's tough. And then Dolphins, you know, anything's just without a quarterback, but it's without a quarterback without anything else too.
number 10 for me for sure. Bad cap situation, the Tua, whatever that is, no quarterback. There's just very few redeeming qualities other than the weather and the no state taxes. I don't even know what the Dolphins have going on for that job right now.
So plenty to come with the Steelers, like we mentioned. Coaching's going to be first. But at the same time, we have committed, and this is kind of a big thing of our podcast, is we're going to be talking Steelers, Pirates, Pens, Pitt, every podcast in some fashion. So we're going to jump from Steelers to Pirates. The question today for the Pirates aspect is really around free agency. So are the Pirates spending for real? Is it for show? Kind of where is it at? And really, I'm going to jump in first. As you can see, I'm kind of all decked out in Pirate stuff. I'm a Pirate guy when it comes down to it. It's probably something I know probably more than any of the other four sports we'll talk about. But the Pirates essentially are at the same payroll level that they have been as last year, maybe a little bit higher than the year before, but that is low 90s from $1 million standpoint. They're around 92, 93 million. That was what they were last year. They're just rearranging deck chairs when it comes to payroll right now. They rolled off Cabrian Hayes and David Bednar, who would be on their payroll. They're paying Ryan O'Hearn and Brandon Lau. They had to give up young, controllable pitching to get Brandon Lau, so that's not even just a for free. Like they're just signing a guy. So really, from a free agency standpoint, they are who they are. It's pretty rough waters. They did sign a free agent to a multi-year deal for the first time since Ivan Nova in 2016. So that where we were 10 years ago, Instagram trend right now, I think that fits for the Pirates. 10 years ago, they were signing Ivan Nova. Now they're signing Ryan O'Hearn. It is one of those things as a Pirate organization. It's just going to be harder to sign free agents for Pittsburgh. People don't want to come to Pittsburgh, not because of the city, beautiful city, But the team is terrible and has been for a while. And really, with those type of teams, you've seen it in other sports too. You have to overspend to get people to come to Pittsburgh, and the Pirates just have not been able to do that, been willing to do that. I don't know if that's a Charrington thing, kind of its budget, or obviously Nutting is mostly responsible, but it is a real thing. Whereas probably the most successful signing the Pirates have ever had was Russell Martin, right before they made their run for a couple years, in 2012 and 2013 and 2014, 2015, but he was a part of two of those years. And they went after him day one of free agency, gave him the most money that anyone was getting, and they got their guy. And that hasn't happened in free agency this year. They kind of got Ryan O'Hearn. There is one name out there that flips the deck for the Pirates, and that's Suarez, Eugenio Suarez. He was with Seattle last year in Arizona. He was with the Reds for a long time, so in the division. He hit over 50 home runs last year. The Pirates don't hit home runs. He would change their lineup. They need help on the left side of the infield. So that's really the Pirates in a nutshell, is that they haven't done anything so spectacular. They probably won't, and that's just the Pirates. But I'm still optimistic.
Yeah, well, home runs are expensive, so that's why they don't hit home runs. Yeah, it just feels like, so to me, I mean, this question, this is the most important question. It's what everyone wants to know right now with the Pirates is, how real is this? They started the, free agency, with a lot of talk, and all of a sudden they're in on all these guys, and it's almost like they might be the World Series champions of, coming in second or somewhere between second and fourth on some of these guys. Again, in a vacuum, it's a step forward, or was a step forward. But how real is it? Like, is this just solely for show, solely for PR? I do, like you said about O'Hearn, I do, and maybe this is a lot. We have a lot of Orioles and Ravens friends, but I was excited about O'Hearn. He also seemed like when you started hearing the rumors, it felt like it was a little different. You looked at the numbers, you looked at, the money that he might ask for, and it did seem like, okay, this could be real. So that was exciting. I think I texted my dad the day that they signed. I was like, we might, this might be actually an optimistic year, for once in a while. Until I really see them, this is a step, but until I see them really take another step, your point too on having to overpay, that's the worst part. The symptom of them not paying is they have to overpay to get these guys, which is tough. And I don't blame them. I mean, it's one thing it's bad enough that they're not serious and, don't spend the money, but do you trust the man? Do you trust ownership? They're not going to just ship you away, if they can. So it's tough. So.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, for the Pirates, it kind of is what it is. It's more exciting of an offseason than the last few. So that's a real thing. There's still plenty of reasons to be excited, but they're not spending money. I don't think that's a thing. Them being rumored with a couple people this offseason doesn't mean they spent any money. It just means they were rumored with a couple people.
Right.
So let's see. Suarez could be the guy. He's still there. If they give him somewhere like 3-4 years, around 20, 25 million per, like that's what it would cost. Then let's go. And we're off and running. But the odds of that happening probably pretty low.
They make a move like that, I'm all in. I'm just always going to be skeptical until they spend the money. Not that I'll, be any less of a fan by any means, but like until they spend the money, it's hard to, truly believe what they're saying.
If they sign Suarez, we're leading the podcast with that when it comes down to it.
You didn't need to say that. I already knew that.
Yeah. So from Pirates to Pens, though, let's keep things moving a little bit. We were talking a lot about coaching for the Steelers. The Penguins also had their own coach. Really, Don Kelly for the Pirates is the longest tenured coach in Pittsburgh.
That is wild.
I guess Jeff Capel is that we're coming up, or Narduzzi from Pitt, but I don't know if you want to talk about that in a positive light. But otherwise, the Penguins switched over coaches this year, and it looks like it's going okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the biggest thing is with this question is the Sullivan move firing a blueprint for the Steelers. Again, I think it has as soon as it happened, that was the first thing you heard was, well, if the Penguins can do it, why can't the Steelers do it? And to me, I thought it was a fair question. You bring in a guy, you did exactly what we were saying. You bring in a guy, you're a rebuild's coming. You bring him in maybe a year or two early. And his MO is he can develop players. He can work with the young players. He can develop them. He's already starting to do that. You can already see it, coming through. And that's a weird thing about hockey too. Is you change a coach, you get a new voice, even more so than other sports. And we've seen it with Bausma and and Sullivan with the Penguins. But you get a new voice, all of a sudden, things do change. Not that I'm as focus with the Penguins of, what do they do this year? What do they do in the short term? Because at the end of the day, like we talked about, the short term is just Crosby and his legacy and Malkin and his legacy. Malkin is playing better this year. They are playing better
Mhm.
across the board. They are competitive, which at one point it looked like they might be tanking for a high draft pick. But yeah, I mean, this is what I want with the Steelers. I want something to be optimistic about. I want a young guy that can work with the young players, develop guys. We'll talk about that with whoever they get. We already talked about with Shula. Um, but this is a blueprint. And look. The big thing, I don't want to go back into the Tomlin debate, but the big thing with Tomlin was, well, who are you going to replace him with? That's not the way to look at it. And by the way, look at the Rangers right now with Sullivan. They're sending out letters. Their GM's sending out letters about, hey, stick with us. They got Sullivan. Sullivan was hired by the Rangers within 10 minutes of the Penguins letting him go. Again, I don't want this to only be about the Steelers because it's just, top of mind right now. But perfect blueprint. They're doing exactly what the Steelers should have been doing. And again, it's not even solely about talent. Just the way they're approaching this is what you should be doing as a franchise when you're getting ready to, pivot off some older names. So, ran over.
Yeah,
That's my take.
and hockey is even more so than any other sport. I would think kind of get that jolt from a coaching change. Just the way that with hockey you're playing your whole team every game. You kind of need all cylinders going. Just how you have that coaching talent to fire up the team really just it matters. I think the Bausma to Sullivan aspect is a real example of that in Pittsburgh. Bausma winning cups. You think you win a cup, you're almost like set for a while, set for life in a sense. But that wasn't the case with Bausma. They moved off to Sullivan. They won two more cups, so it was a great move from the franchise that standpoint. Not saying that Muse is going to be winning cups, so to speak, but he's the right guy for the job right now. The team is in play as well. So as the season ends today, they're a playoff team. So I think the Pens are really arrows up as an organization. Hopefully they kind of hit their nadir and they're on the top, the upswing now. And there's just more of things to come. But it's hard to see what's smoke and mirrors when you're still being led primarily by a Crosby, Malkin, Letang
Yeah.
aspect. So
It's just that the
the
coach
dog days of
matches the
hockey are coming.
scenario.
True,
Yep,
true.
the coach matches the timing. He matches where they're at is all I. That was like the bigger point, but yeah,
Yeah, agreed. And really, I'm excited about the Pens. They had a solid win against the Kraken Monday night. The Crosby Raquel goal is great. They're going to have a good line there. I think really, we'll see. We'll monitor the Penguins as we go along. But if they can stay healthy and stay in it, there's enough spots in the playoffs. They could find their way in. I think that
yeah,
could
it's
definitely
hockey
happen.
with the playoffs.
So, going from a positive with the Penguins, flipping off of that now to moving to our last of the group, Pitt. We're going to stay off of football today and move to basketball. Pitt got absolutely trounced for the first ranked team they played all season. They played Louisville over the weekend, and it was never close, down by over 30 at halftime. I think Pitt has just been really, really bad as a program for so long, to the point where I should be paying attention more than I am, and I'm not. And I really just don't understand how Jeff Capel still has a job here. So this has got to be the end. This has got to be the end of the road for Capel.
Yeah, so I don't know how much we'll talk. I mean, most likely we'll talk more Pitt football than basketball in this podcast, but like you can't not right now. I mean, they probably had their best game all year. Early in the week against Georgia Tech, they looked good. Um, in general, they played hard. None of that showed up. Like, and Louisville's good. Don't get me wrong. Georgia Tech is not, but they didn't. I mean, they just looked. They have no flow. They looked like they didn't want to be. I mean, to be fair, the support isn't exactly great right now. You can't. The attendance is horrible at Peterson Event Center. But like, it's just a rough watch right now with Pitt basketball. I mean, it's tough to follow. What's tough too is they finally have a probably I don't know if it's Capel's best recruiting class. It's got to be up there if it's not. And then like, is it even worth sticking around with him for this? I can't. In year 8, and you're losing by 41 points. I don't think it's. I can't imagine. It'd be hard to make the argument it's worth keeping him. There is just nothing going for this program right now, and there were some signs in the middle of his run here. We're in year 8. I mean, in the middle there, it looked like they were really going to turn a corner, and they were back to stallings at this point. So
The bar was low when Cable started. Stallings could
yeah,
not have wrecked a program faster than the
no,
way he did. It was really atrocious. They still haven't recovered really as a program. And Pittsburgh's a town where you got to win to get people's attention. If you're not winning, people aren't paying attention. And Pitt is certainly that when it comes down to it. So tough go. We've said tough too many times today, but it definitely applies to Pitt right now. Pitt basketball particularly, and really, I think we should just start talking about Pitt volleyball instead. I think that's really
yeah,
kind of the only thing that's worth a discussion for Pitt.
yeah, yeah.
So the last thing we want to wrap every podcast with is kind of some type of nostalgia moment or some type of personal aspect. Justin threw the comment in there today around sports superstitions. We talked about that at the top of the show. He thinks we're winning cups because of him. Obviously, is not the case. I'm a player's guy. But for me, no superstition is strong for me, but I am a vibes guy. So, like, vibes have to be good on game day. If you're out, you're talking, not the game, during an important game or things of that nation, that's what you got to move around and kick people out of a room or do things along those lines. But in terms of, rubbing anything or blowing on anything or wearing something, I feel like that's not important to me. But I definitely want solid vibes during the game. Everyone's got to be on deck.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I'll be honest, when I posed this question, I actually asked my wife and I was like, I thought I was like you. I'm just vibe guy. I like to have fun. And then she started reminding me of some of the things that I've done, that we've done with, some of our friend group during games. We are neurotic, we are crazy. And this is one of my favorite parts about sports, to be honest with you. So I did a kind of a unscientific poll with some of friends. What do you do? Like, and it's some of the things I knew about, but got a lot of, have a jersey rotation. When you lose, they go off and you start it over. Some of the normal stuff, seats. I know this year with Pitt, my dad made us sit in specific seats. You have to sit here. They won. He didn't want me to clean his cup. We cleaned his cup, but he didn't want me to clean his cup between games. Um, so there's a lot of things like that. Jerseys, doing the same thing, wearing the same thing, sitting in the same seat. But some of the other things so I got a lot of that. I did get a really dark one. Kyle told me I can't remember the exact quote, something about I mentally prepare myself for being let down and being sad. Like, all right, well, Kyle, I was thinking a little bit more upbeat, but that's a Ravens fan, so maybe that makes sense with the reasoning, especially after the last couple of years. I do remember my one friend told me he sat in the same broken chair the entire Eagle season. Now the chair this is a computer chair. He broke the chair during one of the games, so he's solely the reason the chair was broken. And I remember him in the playoffs sitting at the back didn't work. It was like, why are you sitting in a random computer chair? And that was why. It was good luck. So it's one of my favorite things, especially I thought this was good timing with the playoffs because we just do weird things. It's almost always during the playoffs. Some of the things I used to do, and I say I'll explain some of these. I always stand during power plays in the playoffs. I make everyone stand in the room. I will no longer drink Lion's Head during Penguins or any game, really. I don't think I've drinking Lion's Head in probably 8 years as a result. But we had a really bad night in Game 7 against the Canadiens, and we don't need to get into the Crosby boarding call, but that's gone down in our lore. So just weird things. I for a while I had to eat hot dogs, Kessel dogs, on the way to Zach's house before playoff games. And then some of these, this is one I forgot about. Zach, our friend Zach, had a glass mannequin head that he would put a Steelers helmet or a Penguins helmet, and he would sit and hold it during games. He would make someone hold it if he wasn't holding it. He ended up with a full mannequin, I think, at one point, but I don't remember all the specifics. He also, this is a callback to the '60s with the Pirates. If you remember, the green weenie was like a good luck thing with the Pirates in the '60s. It was a giveaway at a Pirates game. He during the Steelers playoff games, he would hold it a certain way and shake it a certain way based on the down. So it got real specific and real weird for a few years for us with the Steelers and the Penguins in the late 2000s, early 2010s. So those were some of the things that I had heard and I remembered that we did beyond the norm. My brother and his brother also would eat. They would eat borscht, which is like one of Malkin's favorite meals from Russia, before every single Penguins playoff game. So just some fun things that we used to do, and I heard. Now, what I was mentioning before, and this is like the perfect example, was I don't know if anyone knows what a salt lamp is. I certainly didn't, and I got mad at my wife for buying one. I was like, "What is this? This is a salt lamp?" So this became
People
a
know what
big
a
thing in
salt
our
lamp
friend
is.
group.
That's
Okay,
just
maybe they
you
do. I
that
have no
didn't
idea.
know what a
I
salt lamp
didn't. I was
is.
like, "What is this?" I do think she may have tricked me into this one to liking the salt lamp. We don't remember the origin. She may have told me that it was lucky, and I was like, "Well, I don't want to find out if it's not lucky, so I gotta turn it on during games." But they went on a run for the most recent cup, and it was on during every game, and they only lost like 2 games on this run. I have 4 friends now that have salt lamps and had them on during Penguins games because it was working. You can't fault it if it's working. Um, and the reason we truly bought into this was when they were in the cup that year against the Predators. We went on vacation and I forgot the salt lamp. The Penguins were up 2-0. I went on vacation to the Outer Banks, and they were then down. It got back to 2-2 real quick, and she was coming down late, so she brought the salt lamp down. The Penguins win the next game with the salt lamp 7-0. I mean, you can't tell me that that's not real at that point. They go on to win the cup, and like I said, I now have 4 friends with salt lamps solely because of that run. But that's my one of my favorite things about playoff runs, and teams do it with songs. Like the Phillies had a song, the Blues had a song, that the HBK line with the Penguins, like just stuff like that is so cool. But it's one of my favorite parts about the playoffs and sports. So
Yeah, there was a lot there to unpack, for sure. Salt lamps, definitely people know what salt lamps are. That's not a surprise thing. It's kind of like a happy light. People kind of like it, to keep the
yeah, well,
vibes in the room from that perspective. But maybe you need a new salt lamp. The
that's a
Pittsburgh
good
as a
point.
town has not won anything for a long time, so like
Yeah, exactly.
refresh that thing when it comes down to it. I'm glad you didn't go into the green weenie too detailed. I have kind of not explicit for our podcast right now. I would like to keep it that
Right,
way.
right.
So that's a good thing as well. But definitely fun to recap. We'll try to wrap every episode with something a little bit more personal, kind of
Yeah,
nostalgia.
something fun.
Um, you
Yeah.
know, talking what have you. Even some weeks just throwing out names for former players, like a Chris Fuamatu Malafala type name, just to kind of get the brain rolling. But otherwise, we really do appreciate the support for episode 1. Hope the support returns for us. We're going to be here every week, every Wednesday. We're going to be posting. Look forward to you guys staying on with us. But thanks for listening. Remember to like and subscribe. And again, keep an eye out for next Wednesday.